Museums don't have to be boring and all about history. Today on Aviation Intrigue, we are going to talk to a couple of guests who are going to be sharing what is coming in the future of aviation and even a surprising Hollywood connection.
This is Aviation Intrigue.
Joining us from the Palm Springs Air Museum are Maria Wren, Education Program Manager, and Ann Greer, who does PR and marketing for the museum. I discovered this museum because one of our local pilots and mechanics here in Wisconsin is a volunteer docent seasonally at Palm Springs Air Museum, and he mentioned that this is a must-see for anybody who's in the LA area. And it happens that there's an interesting history tied to the upper Midwest. And could you tell us how the museum got started?
Sure. So the museum actually opened in 1996, but before that, there were some gentlemen talking and some military planes went overhead, and they said to each other, you know, this would be a great location to have an air museum. And it just so happened that one of the seasonal visitors here who had a second home was a man named Robert Pond, and he owned several vintage warbirds. He also flew them, but he was from Minnesota. And so when the idea to start the museum happened, they eventually went to Robert Pond, and he got all excited, and he said, great. He was in, and he offered to loan his vintage warbirds to the Palm Springs Air Museum. So one of the best things about the museum is that they raised the money beforehand. So it was built with 2 hangars. They raised the money beforehand, so there's no interest, no loans. And it opened. So there you go. It opened with 40,000 square feet of hangar space, 2 hangars, and 14 warbirds, which were, loaned by Robert Pond. And then since then, it's just really grown exponentially. But that's the connection there with Planes of Fame East, in Minnesota. And
That's totally intriguing. I love the Midwest connection. You guys are located in Palm Springs, and my understanding is it's right next to the airport.
The back of our museum, the tarmac where the planes can go in and out, is right next to the airport. So our planes that fly, we have 7 planes that fly. We can open up a gate and then fly, taxi to get in line to get permission to take off. However, you cannot get from one location to the other. And we have had, on occasion, people get dropped off here with their luggage saying, oh, well, we thought we'd see the museum and then walk to the airport. No, it doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, I've actually driven people to the airport. When I said, okay, go look at the museum, and in 2 hours, I'll drive you to the airport. So
that's interesting because people don't realize how big some of these airports are. And if you're in one of these facilities and your entrance is on the outside, you have to go around the entire airport, and it might take you several minutes of Uber, or in this case, and the Uber, I guess.
Yeah.
That is really great to be there. It's and we'll reveal a little bit more about the flying activities originating from the museum. And these days, you've got a lot more square footage. I'm reading on your website, you have 5 exhibit hangars and more than 91,000 square feet. Can you describe for people who will be new to the museum what the layout is like?
So when you enter the museum, there are 2 hangars immediately on either side after you go down the entryway. All right. Those are the Pacific hangar to the south and the European hangar to the north. They're also affectionately known as the Pacific Navy, European Army. And so the idea is that we have exhibits and aircraft that were used in those areas of the conflict during World War II. Then north of the European hangar was the 3rd hangar that was built, the B-17, and that was built to house our B-17 Miss Angela. And I did see Miss Angela fly and in 2005 and 2006. So, and she's got all of her engines, and like once every couple of years, we turned over the engines. So that's to the north. As you go to the south, we added in 2018 the Vietnam Korea hangar, also 20,000 square feet. But instead of being a square, it's a rectangle. So this is our event space, and it's great for galas and parties and all kinds of things. Roller derby, we actually have. I mean, Indio or Coachella Valley has a roller derby, a female roller derby team, and they have their roller derby meets, I guess you call them, inside the hangar once a month. So, and then we got the F-117 stealth fighter, and that was the newest hangar. But these 91,000 square feet of climate controlled space cannot hold all the aircraft we have. So we also have many, many aircraft outside down the outside to the south. We have over 75 now. We started with 14.
Wow. So
Wow, that's amazing.
do you rotate the displays? I mean, I see thematic areas like you described, but do you rotate them and change the exhibits and curate them differently based on, I don't know, whatever is going on?
Okay, so the hangar walls are lined, 3 of the walls, because with the hangar you got the rolling doors. So when the weather's really, really good, the hangar doors are wide open. They're 100 feet wide, which is great. So the exhibits and the displays on the walls, those don't change. Those really can't be moved. The aircraft inside can be moved because we do have organizations will come and they will rent out the hangars at night, because we are a nonprofit and we don't have any federal funding. It's all donation based, and our revenue comes from visitors who come and pay admission and membership and things. So we do rent out the space as an event space, and then you have to pull out all the airplanes. And so the airplanes do get moved around.
And you have to have people for that, and people who know how to maintain the exhibits as well, shift them around. So you've got to have all that staffing too.
We have tow bars. We have very specific tow bars because certain planes need different kinds of tow bars, and we have a very small staff, and we have a couple of facility people, and they're the only ones who are allowed to move the aircraft, because they're very valuable, and we don't want them getting scratched or bumped or anything. So yeah, so paid staff, they move the airplanes.
But on top of it, you have volunteers or others that are helping staff the place?
Yes, we couldn't operate without our volunteers. We have over 300 volunteers in season. It goes down to about 100, 150 during the summer. But with the 5 hangars, we have 2 shifts each day, and we'd like to have anywhere from 2 to 4 volunteers for each shift. And then we have, so they're really the face to the visitors who come in. They're interacting with them. And then, of course, we have the visitor center, education youth tours. We have adult tours. These are all docents, volunteers. We have a restoration crew, and that work on our displays and work on the airplanes that do not fly. And we have we have a wonderful library with over 13,000 volumes and computer flight simulators. That's where I am. I'm up there behind the stacks, hidden away.
A lot going on behind the scenes to maintain such a huge museum. Thanks for the overview.
Everybody knows the museum for the airplanes, right? It's an air museum. It's in the name, and they're awesome. We love them. But I think one of the things that is often, not known is just how much we have to offer the community in terms of not just history of the country or of the world, but people's individual and personal stories. And so, what comes to mind is about a month ago or so, I had some family visiting from the East Coast, and one of them had she had lost her husband a few years ago, and she wanted to bring her son here because we happen to have two aircraft that her late husband's grandfather had flown. And so she wanted to bring her son to learn a little bit about his own family history through the aircraft that we have here at the museum. And while they were here, they asked, hey, this is what his name was, and this is when he flew, and we're just wondering if you guys happen to have any information on him or know how we can do that. So I immediately went to the library upstairs and spoke with our head librarian and historian, Frank, who has probably forgotten more about history than I will ever know. And within minutes, Frank was able to go over to one of the books in our library that had a log of everything that that he had done while he was in the service. And they were able to walk away that day, not just learning about different kinds of commendations and different actions that he had been a part of, but actual pictures of him receiving the commendations and actual pictures of him with airplanes that they had no idea he had flown. And they walked away with, I would say, probably a good 5 or 6 pictures of him during his time in the service that their family didn't even know existed. And, that's the kind of difference that this museum can make to families.
That is an incredible story. In this program, we try to focus on the human element behind aviation, and stories like this is exactly we do what we do.
Another big part of your mission is youth education. You have a number of programs there, including one called First Flight, which we'll talk about in this segment. Maria, could you talk a little bit about the educational programs at the museum?
Sure. So the museum has always been focused on giving back to the community, but specifically to engaging our youth through educational offerings. And one of the very first things that they did here at the museum when it opened in 1996 was to offer field trips to the local schools. And that's something that has continued to this day and will always be a part of what we do. We actually have a little over 5,000 students that come to the museum on their youth tours. And we're very happy to say that through generous donations, we're able to provide not just admission free of cost, but we actually reimburse our school districts for the busing expense to get the kids here. And we provide lunch free of cost. So we are removing the biggest barriers to schools having field trips, which is the cost.
Are these programs that you offer somehow connected with the school curriculum? And do they integrate that into their programs? How does that work?
It really depends on the school. In California, our school curriculums vary by grade level. And so not all of the grades are studying history or the humanities in the same way. So if you're talking about a first grader, they're talking about things like people in the community. So it might be more of a, how does an airplane work kind of a thing, versus when you're talking about the middle grades, or high school, then they start to get a little bit more focused on the history side of things. So it truly just depends on the school and the grade level.
That's really great because not just with the tours, but bringing them back into the classroom. Sometimes that is the first exposure to aviation for youth, and that's what we're really interested in as flight instructors, is starting that education early. It sounds like you really go a long ways to make that happen.
Yeah, one of the things that I try to build in every year is career exploration. How do you know that you want to be a pilot if you don't know that that's a career option, or an air traffic controller, or an aviation mechanic, or any of the other hundreds of ways that people work in aviation? And career exploration is something that a lot of our schools have done a great job of including, but we really felt that there was a need for us to sort of pick up a little bit of that slack when it comes to aviation. And that was part of the reason for starting our first flight experience. And so First Flight is a program that allows students between the ages of 12 and 17 who have never had a flight lesson the opportunity to come here to the museum. They learn about how flight works, how the airplanes work, and then they go up for a 30-minute lesson with certified flight instructors. So when they come back from that flight, we actually give them a logbook that shows they have 30 minutes of flight time. And in that time, they're able to not just get a feel for what is it like to actually fly an airplane, and do I really want to be a pilot as a career path, but even if that student never touches an airplane again, they walk away from this completely changed. Their self-confidence and how they see their ability to tackle any future challenge is a life-changing opportunity for them.
It's wonderful you're doing that. We did a program a few weeks ago on careers and education in aviation. In fact, we talked about this, not just being a pilot, but all the rest of the professions around aviation, but also going to school, getting even an associate's degree or a college degree while you're also becoming a pilot. So I'm really glad you're doing that. We also, Elena and I, are involved with, because we are 1 hour from Oshkosh, through the EAA programs. There's a lot of young eagles, or we do an air camp flights giving rides to kids, and there's nothing more satisfying than seeing these kids with this big giant smile on their face after a airplane, or in our case, glider rides. So that's good. Do you also do any hands-on type training with these children?
So in terms of flying an airplane, they do get the opportunity to do some of that when they come for first flight. And we're always looking to expand our offerings for youth. So there are some ways that we are starting to work with our local school districts, as well as our local community college. And, we love nothing more than supporting our youth.
Talk about the Bernie.
Yeah. So one of the ways that we work in collaboration with our local schools is through an internship program that I started 2 years ago. And we have high school interns that come to the museum twice a month for 6 months out of their school year. And they work with our restoration department. So they learn about what it takes to care for our static displays. They learn about the types of machinery that goes into manufacturing parts. And they get real hands-on experience with that. They are able to work on several projects that they actually get to take home with them through using the CNC machine and things like welding. I think one of the times that they walk away with the biggest smiles on their faces is when they actually get to learn how to weld. And, this gives our students not just a look at careers in specifically aviation, but career paths that can take them across a broader field. Because if you know how to weld, you can pretty much pick your career path. Because how many of us know how to weld?
Not me.
Yeah, not me.
That's really great. That is something that seems unique for an aviation museum to really be so diverse in the way that they do the outreach. So it sounds like that is part of what keeps you going, part of the mission.
Absolutely. We truly aim to serve our youth in any way that we can. I think 2 years ago now, I started another internship program in collaboration with one of our Cal State universities. So, Cal State San Bernardino has a program where students who are enrolled can be connected with local organizations for internships, and they actually receive a stipend for that internship. Because even if you have a full ride scholarship to cover your tuition, you still have to put gas in your car to get to where you're going. So this particular internship is for college students who are interested in working in education. So they are coming here to an air museum, but their focus is on working with youth and providing educational services. So these are college students who are our future teachers and are getting real practical experience working with youth, but are also being educated themselves as to what it takes to be in aviation, what those future career paths could be for their future students.
So, and then the funding for this is through all this rental space you talked about, all these events plus donations from the community. Is that the main source?
The main source of donations for education are through grants and specific donations.
Okay. So they are more earmarked. So you pitch a program saying, "Hey, we have this idea," and then you can raise money for it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it kind of depends. Some like the college interns that we have that come to us from Cal State San Bernardino, as well as interns that come to us through our local community college. They get their stipends from the schools directly. So it's a lot of partnerships and working together with our community to make these programs available.
Beautiful. In the next segment, we are really curious and intrigued by understanding your exhibits, both what you have done in the past and what's coming up in the future.
We have some really neat highlights coming up at the museum in the upcoming months, and something I think that is tied to Hollywood. Could you give us a rundown of what's coming up in the future exhibit spaces?
Sure. I'll work backwards. The most exciting thing is that we do have Lockheed Martin's Dark Star, which was built for the film Top Gun Maverick. And it is on loan to us, and it is very large. It's 70 feet long by 40 feet wide, so it is not always in the hangars because we don't have room for it all the time. But for those of you who are going to be in the Palm Springs area from November 15th through November 30th of 2025, Dark Star will be inside the hangar available. And it's included with regular admission price. So
that is quite a score. Yes. I think a lot of people
Yes.
would love to see that in person.
And I assume that November outside in Palm Springs is going to be more tolerable than July.
Definitely, definitely, yes. But we have very interesting educational programs every week from November through May. And so coming up on November 1st, Dickie Chappelle was a correspondent, and she was one of the first women to be embedded with troops during World War II and also during the Vietnam War, and she was the first woman correspondent killed in the line of her profession. And we will have a lecture, and also we will have artifacts on display for that day on November 1, provided by her family. This is a very rare opportunity. And then the following week on November 8th, Michael Cara is the gentleman that went to Papua New Guinea to look for Expedition Amelia, to look for Amelia Earhart's planes. While he was there, he found the remains of two B-17E aircraft, which means also the remains of the crew members. Each plane had a crew of 9. So on the 8th, he's going to talk about what he found, the lost aircraft in the Pacific, and we will do a memorial for those crews. We have the plate, data plate, I guess it's called, and we're getting a B-17 nose that people can look at. So that's on the 8th. And then the following week on the 15th, Dark Star comes into the hangar. So, yeah.
Oh, that's, you got a busy schedule. Now, I'm kind of curious, just from an organizational perspective, do you go seek out these projects and figure out how to put it together? Or do people approach you? Do you have collaborations with other museums? How does that work?
Well, our director, Fred Bell, is very, very forward thinking. And we want to be a living, breathing museum that has connections to today. We don't want to be an old stuffy, oh, it's history. So we're always looking at the future things. You know, there are plans to have a rocketry hangar, for example, and a hangar on is it hyperspace? No.
Hypersonic.
Hypersonic.
I thought you were talking about Star Trek stuff.
Well, yeah, sort of. So once we have that hangar, that's part of the future plans. You know, then Dark Star hopefully will then be on permanent display.
Wow.
And right now we just went through a renovation of the front of the museum, and we just finished construction of a brand new education center, which quadruples the number of students that Maria can reach at one time. And that hopefully, will be open by the end of this year, end of 25. So we're always looking at how can we make us part of the fabric of the community and be relevant today. You have to know your history because otherwise you're doomed to repeat it in order to move forward. But we're always looking forward. What is the next opportunity?
I love the fact that you have very, very interestingly tied the past, the current, and the future brilliantly. So great job on that. We are going to put all our links to your website and whatever other relevant links in our show notes so that people can look it up. And sounds like November or for the next several weeks is going to be very, very interesting period with one great exhibit after another.
Well, there's always something new to see at the museum, and it takes a good 3 hours just to cursorily look at everything because there is so much here. And dogs on leash, friendly dogs on leash, you're always welcome. You got to get that in. And we have wheelchairs that people, if they need it, can use free of charge. And the best thing are the docents who talk to the visitors and share their experiences. We even have 2 World War II people, docents, who were here every week.
And I think one of the things that, as a mom, as someone who has chaperoned field trips for my own children when they were in school, I think one of the things that people are happy to learn about here is that we are very kid friendly. Sometimes when we think of the word museum, we think stuffy. We think you have to be quiet. You can't touch anything. And we encourage families to bring their kids, and we encourage those kids to get right up close to the airplanes because we want them to love it just as much as we do.
Yeah, it's almost like an aviation discovery center.
Oh, yes. And
like
I read
that.
that you have open cockpit days where you can literally climb into these historic warbirds and really see things up close. So you really go a long way to make it hands-on.
Yeah, that's every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. One of the aircraft is opened and you can climb in and sit in the cockpit.
It's pretty awesome. I
Yeah.
sat in our Corsair. I was
Wow.
instantly 12 years old.
Wow.
Oh,
That's
coming up this
great.
Saturday.
That's the beauty of aviation, right? I mean, even if you're not an aviator, something fascinating about airplanes. Just
And-
looking at them, touching them, it brings
and
out
we
the
have some
child in us.
unusual things too. So, for example, the Corsair, which is the hero of the animated Disney film Planes. Well, Disney came and recorded the engine sounds for that Corsair here at the museum. We're credited at the end of the credits, and we
That's
have
great.
Walt Disney's Gulfstream turboprop airplane here. We're restoring the interior so that people can go inside. So if you come here, you can see, you know, this chair that Disney sat in and all the stuff that was inside his plane, the artifacts. And we have a Learjet. Clay Lacey did a lot of stunt piloting with the movie industry. So we have the airplane that was used in all these different TV shows and everything. So there's lots of fun stuff. We have the front of a C-119 that you can climb in. The kids can go climb inside and everything. There's a lot of. And then on the flip side, we have over 2,000 bracelets, POW, MIA bracelets, in honor during the Vietnam War. So it's really, there's so much to discover and explore, and the only ropes or cords are around the airplanes that are being worked on mechanically.
Wonderful.
What an amazing variety. That would take a whole day to go through.
One of the other things we have that's very, I think, unique is we have a wonderful mural, 10-panel mural that takes up, like half a wall, devoted to the Tuskegee Airmen. And right now, most of the Tuskegee Airmen have passed away. And we have a flying P-51 Mustang that the markings are all in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Bob Friend, who flew 140 missions during World War II in Europe. And so every time that plane flies, we're referencing the Tuskegee Airmen, who gave so much to this country during a time when there was a lot of discrimination against Black Americans. So,
And you have one still flying. That's pretty amazing.
we do. Yes.
Yeah.
Not only does it fly, it takes a passenger.
That's one of the warbird rides that you offer. That's great.
Yes.
Have you been to any museums that have had a meaningful impact on your life? Share your stories with us in the comments.
This is